Damon?
What should we refresh people on more broadly here about the Targ views on incest?
Okay, so we've talked about it a little bit before because, as we mentioned, there's been a few instances of incest. Like Damon didn't invent this, right? Targaryens love incest. It's very important to them. What a sentence!
It's true. It's fair and it's true.
I hope my parents are proud. That the Targaryens believe that they need to keep their bloodline as Targy and pure as possible to maintain their ability as dragon riders.
Yep.
And so this is actually totally fine in the Targaryen point of view. Even the fact that like he has been sort of working her a bit since she was a kid, which like I've heard the word grooming circled around. Yes. And that's not really how it worked in this society. So, as far as this society goes, there are elements of this that are dicey, but it's not the fact that this is an uncle and a niece. So,
right. Well, I want to come back to that. What actually is offensive about this aspect when we get to Viserys and Daemon later. But I think that's an important note for right here, that the incest itself, even for Viserys, is not the issue.
Yeah.
You mentioned some of like the groundwork being laid here.
We got a great email from a listener, Jay, or just one of a few where they were talking about like a lot of people have been watching the show being like, am I supposed to be shipping this uncle with his niece? What are the sparks here? Should I be uncomfortable? Whatever. There's this great scene in episode 2, A Dragonstone on the Bridge, when Rhaenyra comes up to Damon and she's confronting him and she goes, I'm right here, uncle, the object of your ire.
I'm right here, uncle. The object of your ire.
And Jay was like, oh, I thought at the time she said object of desire. Like that's what it almost sounds like when she says it. You don't say object of your ire. You say object of your desire. And Damon looks incredibly.
This is how we thought the Hall of Lore was the
we're going to talk about that on Rings of Power. Mallory and I cling to our closed captioning for dear life. But just the way they phrase that's like one of many moments where you're just supposed to be like, okay, Rhaenyra and Damon, there's something there,
What do we actually see happen here? Despite Otto's account later, they don't fully couple because Damon cannot. They do begin to kiss in plain view. Damon is undressing Rhaenyra. He is opening her shirt. He's taking down her pants. They're up against a wall. She's turned facing the wall, back toward him. Can we talk about the disguises for a second here? Because I think it's crucial when we're trying to parse Damon's motivations or intentions. Is he counting on them being spotted? Because I think at best, you could say he knows it's a risk. At worst, you have to deduce that he's planning on it. Because remember, we know that whether or not he said air for a day, the exploits of that night made their way back to Viserys, and he knows that. So he must know that what's happening here will make their way back. The disguise is pretty flimsy in the first place. Rhaenyra is spotted by Harwin and identified immediately. And then Damon takes off the beanie.
It's the taking off of the beanie.
That signature Targ hair in full view.
There's this question we had on Talk the Thrones. This is before we had the benefit of after the episode input from the showrunners, but we had this discussion of like, is this Damon's impotency, which we have seen before, merely an equipment malfunction, or is there something emotional involved here? And I think it's both, because those things are not disconnected. And I think what's really significant in the choreographing of this sequence is when she turns back around. Like he turns her to the wall.
Yes.
Like, I can power through this if I'm not looking at my niece, who I genuinely care about. But when she turns back around, it's not just her taking some agency. I don't think he's objecting to that. I think he's objecting to like having to confront who he's doing this to.
Agreed.
And that's when he falters.
So what is your final line here on Damon's motivations? You mentioned the inside the episode and getting to hear from the showrunners, and Sapochnik says, quote, it's the idea that Damon is using Rhaenyra as a way to get to her father. Ultimately, his impotence in this scene is a reflection of the fact that he knows deep down that what he's doing isn't right.
Right.
So his attraction, I think we both agree that his attraction to Rhaenyra and hers to him is real and palpable. He is it is also true that he is using her here to achieve an end.
Yes.
Damon.
I think he's heard that Rhaenyra is on the tour for a husband, and he's like, here we go. A, I like her a lot. B, then I get to be king. To hear more from this conversation, follow the Ringerverse on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.